Okay, good morning. So now we would like to discuss about assessment and also evaluation. So before we enter the meaning of assessment and evaluation, let us discuss about the measurement first. So measurement, it is a systematic procedure for figuring out an object characteristics. So it is used to determine the attributes or dimension of an object. For example here, we measure an object to know how the big, tall or heavy it is. So the measurement here provides a quantitative description of the objects. For example, if you are a teacher, you can say that the quantitative description of your students is answering 23 questions out of 40 questions that provided by the teachers. So let's move about the assessment here. Assessment is the process of gathering, recording, interpreting, using and communicating information about a child's or student's progress and achievement during the development of knowledge, concept, skills and attitudes. So I will give you an example here. A teacher may assess the knowledge of English language through a test and assesses the language proficiency of the students through any other instrument, for example like oral quiz or presentations. So here the process of gathering information about the students' progress is conducted by giving them like a quiz of presentation, for example here. And then if we talk about an evaluation, so it is a continuous inspection of all available information in order to form a valid judgment of students' learning or the effectiveness of education program. In teaching learning process, teachers made students evaluations that are usually done or conducted in the context of comparisons between what was intended, for example like learning, progress or behavior, and what was obtained. So here in evaluation, the teacher will compare between the intended things in learning process with what was already obtained by the students. So that is evaluation. So let me give you a real example about assessment and evaluation. So example of a assessment here in a course, for example, so like a discussion, observation, exam in the classroom, papers, reflection, question answer in the classroom, and student response in the classroom. But when you do an evaluation, the instructor here evaluating learning when they grade a paper. So this paper may be graded in comparison to other papers or rubric that made to grade the paper. So you can see the difference between assessment and evaluation. Assessment, for example, it is about the observation, the examination programs, and the evaluation is when the teacher grade a paper from the students. So this is the evaluations. Okay, let's move about the difference between assessment and evaluation. So we talk about the meaning of assessment and evaluation. So like I said before, meaning of assessment here is monitoring the process on a set of learning activities. So it is focused on learning process. But evaluation, it means that the testing students' mastery about material. So the focus here is on the final result of the learning process. Alright, so the objective of assessment here is to monitor learning process, so getting feedback from the learning activity in the classroom, And it also develops generalization, which is analyzed from variable relation. But in evaluation, the objective here is defining students' mastery learning. So the teacher can say that the students pass or not in the course. And the second one, the objective of evaluation is to evaluate evaluation which is focused on the learning outcomes. Okay, so when we want to do the assessment, you can do it any time or any program or wherever or whenever you want to do. But when you do evaluation, it should be scheduled. So sometimes it should be conducted after learning process or at the end of the learning process. The form of assessment, it is used for monitoring, but evaluation, it is a test. Okay, and then here, the significance for assessment, it is whole understanding to determine the strategies or activities. So after you do assessment today, you can see about your students' progress, and then you can determine what strategies can be used on the next activities. But when you do an evaluation, it is to know whether the objective of learning process can be achieved or not based on the test result of the students. So it makes the data gathered in assessment, it is qualitative data. But when you talk about the data collected in evaluation, it is a quantitative data. Okay, so we would talk about the types of assessment. So here we divide assessment into three parts. The first one, it is assessment for learning. Second one is assessment of learning, and last one, assessment as learning. So we will differ between these three types of assessment: assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and last one, assessment as learning. Assessment for learning, so we call it a formative assessment. Assessment for learning is a continuous and an ongoing assessment that allows teachers to monitor students on a day-to-day basis and modify their teaching based on what the students need to be successful. So this assessment conducted every meeting in the classroom. So this assessment provides students with the timely, specific feedback that they need to enhance their learning process. So the formative assessment will be conducted in the process of learning. And then when we talk about the assessment for learning, you can do several types of activities, such kind like observation here. So you can observe students' behavior and tasks, which can help the teachers identify the students' learning activity in the classroom. And the second one, sometimes your teacher will ask several questions, which is we call it like a questioning strategies, to allow an opportunity for deeper thinking and understanding, which is teachers need to understand how much you understand about the material. The third one, teachers can conduct a self or peer assessment. So when students have been involved in criteria and goal setting, self-evaluation is logical step in the learning process. So it means that teachers sometimes will give you a questionnaire or a question asking about your progress in the classroom. So you will assess yourself by answering the question. Or teacher can do the peer assessment. It means you need to assess your friends, or your friend will assess yourself by giving them such kind of guide, the question or questionnaire, so you can answer that question to show how is your improvement in classroom. And last one is about students record keeping. So it is also help teachers to assess beyond a grade, so to see where the learner started and the progress they are making towards the learning goals. So it means from the students record keeping, you will know your progress in the classroom. Okay, so let's move to the second one. So it is about assessment of learning or summative assessment. So summative assessment or assessment of learning is used to evaluate students' achievement at some point in time. So generally it is conducted at the end of a course. So the purpose of this assessment is to help the teacher, students and parents know how well students has completed the learning task. So it is conducted after the learning process, just to know how well students has completed the learning task. And the last one, it is about assessment as learning. So when we talk about assessment as learning, it means that to use assessment to develop and support students' metacognitive skills. This form of assessment is crucial in helping students become lifelong learners. As a students engage in peer and self-assessment, they learn to make sense of information related to prior knowledge and use it for new learning. So it means when the students do the peer or self-assessment, they will relate their prior knowledge or the things that they expected to learn, and then how they implement, how to use the progress of the learning and use their prior knowledge for the. Okay, so there is the difference between three types of assessment, and again it is about assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and last one, assessment as learning. Okay, now we talk about the role of assessment. In teaching and learning, they are reciprocal processes, so that depend on and affect one another. So you must understand, when the teaching and learning process, they are depend on and affect one another. Thus, the assessment component deals with how well the students are learning and how well the teacher in teaching. So here I will provide you 6 roles of assessment. The first one, capturing students' time and attention. The second one, generating appropriate student learning activity. The third one, providing timely feedback which students pay attention. The fourth one, helping students to internalize the discipline standards and notions of equality. Number 5, generating marks or grades which distinguish between students or enable pass or fail decision to be made. And last one, the role of assessment is providing evidence for the other outside the course to enable them to judge the appropriateness of standards on the course. Before we end this meeting, so we will discuss about the principles of classroom assessment. So there are some principles of classroom assessment. So we will discuss one by one. So the first one, assessment should be formative. So because the assessment, it is a formative one, so it is used to monitor student learning to provide ongoing feedback. So it means when the assessment conducted, so teacher and also students will get the ongoing feedback. The second one, assessment should determine the planning. It means you should ensure an assessment stays focused on intended goals and should be developed before the activities and tasks. So it means as a teacher you need to plan your assessment when will be conducted in the learning process. And the third one, assessment should serve teaching. So here when you talk about assessment, it will help the teachers teaches and the ways to improve the teaching strategy. And then when we say that assessment should serve learning, so assessment here also help students in learning so they can understand what should they get in the classroom and the feedback from the teachers, and students will know how to improve themselves by the learning process. Number 5, when we are talking about assessment should be curriculum driven, therefore that the current emphasis of assessment, testing what the students can or cannot recall, may be doing disservice to students. So ideally assessment should be in service to instructions, and when instructional change are made, they should be reflected in the assessment also. Number 6, assessment should be interactive. So where provided by assessment, students can find instant feedback because it enables the students to get any feedback also in the program. So when you do the assessment, it should be interactive. So the feedback can be given by the teachers, and the students will get the feedback and they can improve themselves by the feedback given by the teachers. And then assessment should be student centered. So it means the students should be focused on the student learning process, and the process of assessment should be understand and should see how the process of the learning by students. And number 8, assessment should be diagnostic. So it means that the assessment can diagnose the weakness or the strengths in the classroom activity. So by doing the diagnostic, so it can find the best way how to teach in the classroom. Number 9, assessment should be non-judgmental. So it means that it is not used to judge, but the judgment will be conducted on evaluation process. Number 10, assessment should lead the learner's autonomy. Assessments provide evidence that it is possible for learners to identify their learning needs in relation to autonomy, despite its complex nature. So this can happen by means of a social mediated collaborative assessment for autonomy, and might contribute to the development of a learner identity, sustaining motivation over time. So that is the means of assessment should lead the learner's autonomy. And last one, assessment should involve reflective teaching. So as a reflection for teacher about their teaching process, it can be the ways to improve their strategy approaches and methods of teaching. Okay, and the last one, the question is, why do we assess the students or the learners? Assessment here is integrated or integral to learner. Again, assessment is integral to learning. Effective assessment can determine the degree to which students have met the intended learning outcomes for a course program. Assessment also directs both the students' and instructors' attention to what is important in the learning process. In the assessment also, it provides evidence on what has been learned for instructors as well as for students. So in higher educations, we assess our students to integrate them into the learning process and provide evidence of their understanding. Okay, so that's all about our discussions about the meaning and the difference between assessment and evaluation. So we will talk more about assessment on the next meeting. Thank you and good morning. See you next time.